Hi everyone, it's Dr. Stokes at DocMomMD, and I wanted to take a little bit of time today to talk about developmental delays and early intervention. I am a mother of two, and I'm a general pediatrician in the Atlanta area. One of the most fun parts about being a general pediatrician is recognizing how a child is developing from the beginning stages all the way through adulthood, which is why we really encourage families to come in for your annual well visits. It is so much that a general pediatrician will see and will recognize that may not necessarily be recognizable to a family that spends time with a child every day. And one of the reasons that I wanted to come on and talk today was about often you see children who have issues with developmental delay, and families may not recognize that something may be wrong, but usually they will have just a little inclination about something that needs some intervention. So just wanted to touch on just a few key points so that you can kind of keep that in mind. So first thing is recognizing the area of concern. When we look at a child developmentally, we are looking at their language, their social interaction, their personal development, their gross motor skills, their fine motor skills, how they're interacting with just things that are around them. And when we come into a room, we literally will watch a child and see how they are interacting in the room. Are they appropriately afraid of me? Are they responding appropriately to questions? And even trying to touch base with the families to say, hey, we may not be doing this, but what do they do at home? It's no shock that sometimes kids can be a little bit afraid to see us, and sometimes they're not their normal selves when we are able to spend time with them. If you are a parent, we usually tell you to make sure you are paying attention to your child, but also taking the time to answer those specific questions that we may have. A lot of offices will have a developmental screening tool or will ask very directed questions, which sometimes parents are like, oh yeah, they do all of that. But just take the time and speak with your physician about it so they can really understand what's going on with the development. One difficult thing that I have found is when there is a concern about development, trying to go against preconceived notions or stereotypes that some families may have about the needs of a child. I'll have very differing extremes. I'll have a 4-year-old who is not speaking at all, and I'll have a parent say, oh, well, my parents said I didn't talk until I was like 6 years old. Well, even though that may have been normal, and you may be normal now, that does not mean that that is appropriate or correct. Or I'll have the other extreme of a family who will say, my child is 1 and they're not calling my name yet, or they are not, speaking enough words. And all of those can be variations of development, but being able to recognize that early on and recognizing if your physician thinks there's a need for intervention, that you definitely take advantage of that. We really encourage families not to let a diagnosis define you. There are so many things that can be variable in development. And a lot of times parents will compare to their nieces or nephews or other children even and try to determine what is right and what is appropriate for development. But one of the most important things is recognizing where your child is and how they have progressed over time. Diagnosis itself is not the issue. The reason we like to have a diagnosis is, first and foremost, it gives us the appropriate type of referrals or recommendations that are needed for the child. And we recognize that if you have an appropriate diagnosis, it opens up other opportunities for that child to meet their full potential. I can't speak enough about the importance of knowing your insurance plan and looking into different specialists that would be appropriate for your child. It's really difficult because there are so many different policies. You could have private insurance or you could have government insurance, and a lot of times that determines where you can actually go for care. In our nation, unfortunately, sometimes developmental support and even mental support is not necessarily covered by all plans, but I try to tell families whether it's covered or not, that does not mean that it's not important. So if you are referred by your provider to a particular area and they don't accept your insurance, One of the more important things to do is to go directly to either your insurance website or call them to say who in this area covers this particular type of therapy. That way your child will not have a care that is delayed. And when I see that child possibly 3 to 6 months later, I'm not seeing a family that says, oh, it wasn't covered, so I ended up not going. That's probably one of the worst things that we can do. Some families get very afraid of just the possibility of having an evaluation. And I really encourage them, listen, the evaluation, first of all, is just to kind of say, where are we and where can we go? And the other important thing is remembering that if they are evaluated, they may or may not even qualify for services. But if you don't put your child in that opportunity, then they'll never know. The next thing is, if a referral is made, please follow up with your provider. A lot of times parents will change their minds after visits, even after hearing what's recommended, or they won't hear from the actual office that they've been referred to, and they just kind of let that pass. And so we really encourage you to take ownership of your child's health. A lot of times, if a referral has been made, we just encourage you to please follow up. Often parents will change their mind after a visit, even after you have discussed a few different plans, or they'll speak with other friends, family members, and make their own conclusions as to what is important at that point. But regardless, follow up and take ownership of your child's health. Being their number one advocate is our most important job as parents and caretakers. And then I encourage you to just ask your physician for support. It's really challenging if you have families who work full time and then they do qualify for these services and therapies, and you have to have a visit at Tuesday at 2 p.m. Well, that literally doesn't work with most people's schedules. And if there is not a way around it, then sometimes you will qualify for support like FMLA or other support through your employer. If that's needed, your doctor can sometimes assist with that by writing special letters or giving, a phone call where it's needed to be able to help you get the support that you need for your child. If this video was helpful, I would love for you to share this with parents and caretakers alike, especially if they have children who they are battling with issues of development and progression of milestones. As always, I'd love for you to follow me at DocMomMD on Instagram and Twitter, or at Dr. Tashana Stokes on Facebook and YouTube. I have been so fortunate in the last 10 plus years to be able to see children reach far, far above what I could have ever imagined. I have had children where there will be 1 year they won't even say any words or won't have any eye contact, and 2 years later they're coming up to me, giving me a high five, saying, "Hi, Dr. Stokes." That's why you never put a limitation on your children, and you always know that if you do the absolute best for them, that is all that is required. When I see a child who has made such progression, not only is it so rewarding for me, but I get to see a different level of pride in those families, that they really have gone far above what would even be expected of them as a parent to help that child to reach their full potential. So I hope to see you next time on my channel. Have a great day.